Picture yourself in a medieval courtyard, pressed against a sea of onlookers, the air heavy with whispers and the scent of damp earth. Oh, the scaffold stands before you, its weathered beams a silent testament to countless judgments. You're here to see justice done, an execution meant to be swift, precise, a stark warning etched in blood. The state's authority is on full display, a ritual honed to perfection to show who holds the reins. The executioner steps forward, his axe catching the sun's glint, and the condemned is led to the block. You brace for a clean end, a moment of grim closure. But what if the axe misses? What if the condemned, bloodied and desperate, bolts across the scaffold, the executioner in clumsy pursuit? What if the crowd's murmurs turn to gasps, then screams, as order crumbles into chaos? These are the stories we're diving into. Executions so disastrously botched, they outdid the crimes they punished in sheer terror. Let's start with the very idea of execution. Across centuries, it was more than punishment, it was performance. From the guillotine's sharp drop to the pyre's roar, each method was a stage for the state to flex its might, to deter, to control. The crowd wasn't just there to watch, they were part of the script, their reactions proof of the system's power. But history loves to rewrite scripts. When executions went wrong, and they could go spectacularly wrong, they laid bare the brutality behind the facade of justice. These moments didn't just shock, they forced societies to question their methods, sometimes sparking reform, always leaving scars on those who saw them unfold. Consider Margaret Pole in 1541, a woman whose death in the Tower of London became a haunting legend. At 67, she was a grandmother, one of the last Plantagenets, a dynasty that once rivaled the Tudors. Henry VIII, ever wary of threats, branded her a traitor, though her crime was little more than her bloodline. Executing a noblewoman of her age was no small matter. The regular executioner, a man skilled with the axe, reportedly refused, unwilling to stain his hands with such a deed. So, they found a stand-in, some say a volunteer from the crowd, armed with an axe but no expertise. Imagine the Tower's green, a chill morning, nobles and commoners gathered, their breath misting in the air. Margaret, frail but unyielding, is led to the scaffold. She's told to kneel, to rest her head on the block. So should traitors do, and I am none, she says, her voice cutting through the tension. The executioner, nerves fraying, swings. The axe misses her neck, gashing the back of her head. Blood spills, and Margaret, in pain, stumbles to her feet. She runs, an elderly woman fleeing death itself. The executioner, axe raised, chases her across the scaffold. The crowd, expecting a quick death, watches in horror as he swings again, striking her shoulders, her back, her arms. 11 blows, 11, before she collapses, her defiance snuffed out. Some in the crowd retch, others flee. Even Tudor veterans call it the most barbaric sight they've ever seen. This wasn't just a failure of one man's aim. It was a crack in the Tudor machine. Henry wanted strength, but got chaos. Margaret's death sent whispers through England, demanding better training for executioners, stricter protocols. Her story, born of blood and blunder, lingered in the shadows of Henry's reign, a reminder that even kings can't control every swing of the axe. As we leave her on that scaffold, another royal execution waits, one that would turn a queen's death into a grotesque spectacle, shaking the very foundations of Elizabethan justice. In 1587, Mary Queen of Scots faced her end at Fotheringhay Castle. Her death meant to be a triumph of Elizabeth I's rule. Mary, a Catholic queen in Protestant England, was a constant thorn in Elizabeth's side, tied to plots against her cousin's throne. Her execution was to be a masterstroke of propaganda, a dignified end to a dangerous rival. The great hall was packed with nobles, clergy, and officials, all there to see justice served. The executioner, Bull, was reputedly skilled. The block was set, the axe honed. The stage was perfect, but perfection is fragile. As Mary knelt, her composure serene, Bull raised his axe. The first swing missed her neck, striking the back of her head. A groan escaped her lips, echoing through the hall like a ghostly lament. The crowd froze, their anticipation souring. Bull, rattled, swung again. This time, the blade nearly severed her head, but tendons held fast, leaving it dangling. A third, frantic strike finished the job. Relief was brief. When Bull lifted Mary's head to cry, "God save the Queen," it slipped from his hands. Not from clumsiness, but because Mary wore a wig. Her real head, gray, balding, blood-streaked, rolled across the scaffold, lips twitching as if in silent prayer. The silence shattered with screams, the Dean of Peterborough's prayers halting mid-sentence. This wasn't justice. It was a macabre farce. Mary's death didn't just shock the hall. It sent tremors through England's elite. Nobles, already uneasy about killing a queen, began to question the spectacle of public executions. Her botched beheading became a rallying cry for those who saw such displays as relics of a barbaric past. The ripples of that day's failure would push England closer to rethinking its rituals of death. As we step away from Fotheringay's bloodied floor, another stage awaits, this time in Renaissance Florence, where a monk's fiery end would collapse into a comedy of errors, exposing the fragility of even the grandest plans. Florence, 1498, pulses with the brilliance of the Renaissance. Art and ideas flourish, but so does fervor, thanks to Girolamo Savonarola, a Dominican monk who set the city ablaze with his vision of purity. His bonfire of the vanities saw Florentines torch their mirrors, cosmetics, even artworks, all deemed sinful. By 1498, his enemies, church and elite alike, had turned the tide. Savonarola was sentenced to burn, a poetic end in the flames he'd wielded. The Piazza della Signoria, Florence's heart, was chosen for the spectacle. A towering wooden platform rose, a pyre to match the monks' own bonfires. Thousands filled the square, some jeering, others curious, all ready for the curtain to fall on Savonarola's reign. The monks were let out, bound to their posts, the crowd's anticipation thick. Then, with a crack that split the air, the platform collapsed. Not slowly, but in one catastrophic plunge, sending Savonarola and his fellows crashing into the kindling below. The crowd, poised for drama, stood dumbstruck. Was this God's hand? A builder's blunder? Officials scrambling faced a choice: rebuild, delay, or improvise. They piled the debris into a makeshift pyre, retied the monks, and lit the fire. But the uneven heap burned chaotically, flames leaping here, smoldering there, smoke swirling in choking clouds. The spectacle, meant to echo Savonarola's grandeur, became a shambles. Florentines didn't leave discussing justice. They muttered about shoddy carpentry, unchecked plans, the absurdity of it all. Savonarola, master of spectacle, had birthed one final, humiliating show. Florence, stung by embarrassment, tightened rules for execution platforms. Other cities followed, mandating inspections, backups. The monk's death, meant to end his influence, instead became a lesson in hubris and haste. As we leave the smoky square, a new era dawns, one where science promises a cleaner death, only to deliver a horror of its own in the flickering light of an electric chair. August 6, 1890, Auburn Prison, New York. Date. The world is electric with progress, and the electric chair is its latest marvel. Hailed as the humane future of execution, it promises death without mess, without pain, just a switch's flick. William Kemler, convicted of killing his girlfriend with a hatchet, is its first subject. The chair, crafted with Thomas Edison's input, gleams with oak, leather, and brass, a throne of modern justice. Edison, feuding with George Westinghouse over electrical currents, saw the chair as proof of Westinghouse's alternating currents danger. 25 witnesses, doctors, reporters, officials, crowd the execution room, ready to see history made. Kemler is strapped in, electrodes on his head and back. The warden signals, and 1,000 volts surge for 17 seconds. Kemler convulses, then stills. "He's dead," the physician says. Then Kemler breathes. His chest heaves, foam bubbles at his mouth. Groans fill the air. The executioner, panicked, throws the switch again, a higher voltage, longer. The smell hits, burning flesh, acrid and sickening. Smoke rises, Kemler's hair ignites. His clothes smolder. The chair's brass fittings sear through leather straps. A reporter vomits, escorted out. A physician calls it the most revolting spectacle he'd seen. 8 minutes later, Kemler is dead, but so is the chair's reputation. Newspapers savaged the humane invention. Westinghouse sneered. They could have done better with an axe. The debacle forced refinements, but the damage was done. The public, promised progress, saw modern arrogance laid bare. As we leave the smoke-filled room, another execution looms, one where ancient cruelty, not new science, would stretch justice to its breaking point, in a Paris square where horses and knives would turn punishment into torture. March 28, 1757. Paris's Place de Grève thrums, with thousands nobles in prime seats, all eyes on Robert François Damiens. His crime, raising a penknife against King Louis XV, barely scratching him, was the ultimate sin in absolutist France. His punishment, dismemberment by 4 horses, his body torn apart as a warning to regicides. The crowd expects a swift symbolic act of royal might. 4 horses, 4 limbs, 1 pull, done. But reality is messier. The horses, when let out, are not mighty drafts but weary carriage animals, unfit for the task. Damiens is stretched on the ground, ropes binding him to the horses. They pull, and nothing happens. His joints stretch, he screams, but he remains whole. Minutes drag into an hour, then 2. The horses, confused, falter. The crowd, expecting awe, grows uneasy. Officials debate. New horses? More? They choose knives, cutting Damiens' tendons to aid the horses. The execution becomes butchery, blood pooling as he pleads, conscious through it all. After 4 hours, with 2 extra horses, his limbs tear away, not cleanly but in a slow, agonizing rip. The crowd, meant to marvel, leaves traumatized. Voltaire and others seized on the horror, arguing for reform. Damiens' death, meant to bolster the monarchy, weakened it, fueling calls to end such tortures. As we turn from Paris, another execution awaits, where Tudor England's brutality would push even its hardened crowds to revolt, demanding mercy where none was planned. In 1586, London's Tyburn scaffold draws a massive crowd for Anthony Babington and his fellow conspirators. Bow! Their Babington plot, aiming to kill Elizabeth I and crown Mary Queen of Scots, was treason of the highest order. Elizabeth's sentence: hanging, drawing, and quartering with a twist. The men were to be cut down alive, disemboweled and dismembered while conscious, a deliberate cruelty to crush Catholic hopes. Babington mounts the scaffold first. He's hanged briefly, enough to keep him awake, then cut down. The executioner slices him open, pulling intestines to burn before his eyes. Arms and legs are severed. Each cut a scream. The crowd, used to Tudor violence, recoils. Shouts rise. Some rush the scaffold to stop the horror. This crosses a line even they can't stomach. Word reaches Elizabeth, and in a rare act, she halts the cruelty mid-execution. The remaining 6 are hanged until dead before quartering, sparing them Babington's fate. The crowd, still shaken, disperses, their outrage a warning to the crown. The Babington execution taught Elizabeth's regime the limits of brutality. Even in a violent age, there were boundaries. As we step back from Tyburn, let's reflect on these disasters. Margaret's chase, Mary's rolling head, Savonarola's collapse, Kemler's burning, Damien's torture, Babington's agony. Each was a stage for power, each a failure that exposed its cracks. These stories aren't just about death, they're about the living, crowds who screamed, officials who faltered, systems that buckled. Margaret's death forced training for executioners. Mary's fueled debate on public spectacles. Savonarola's fiasco tightened construction rules. Kemler's horror spurred technical fixes. Damien's ordeal birthed reform. Babington's suffering showed even cruel crowds had limits. These failures weren't just errors, they were mirrors, showing societies their flaws. As a historian, I see people in these moments, executioners sweating, witnesses retching, condemned fighting. As a writer, I feel their weight, their voices echoing beyond the scaffold. They ask us, what do our systems hide? Where do we assume control in this chaos? Today's justice, though less bloody, still wrestles with fairness, spectacle, failure. These stories warn us, no plan is foolproof, no power absolute. They urge us to look closer, to demand better, to remember the human cost when justice stumbles. If these tales gripped you, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for more dives into history's shadows. Drop a comment. What shocked you most? Margaret's defiance? Kemler's ordeal? Let's talk about the past and what it teaches us. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and I'll see you in the next story.